So labor is the Achilles heel for most operators. Most operators can control food costs to a certain degree. But labor is the problem. One, it's the cost of labor, minimum wage, especially in California. The cost of labor, finding labor, people that want to work as servers or cooks. Okay, being able to keep and retain labor, and then the cost of training. Okay, and then there's just the cost of turnover. So building that team, getting the right hires is really quite important. So most operators that we run into, and again, we've probably done about over 2,000 assessments over the course. We do 80 projects a year. So we're at restaurants all over the world all the time. Oftentimes what happens is managers, they throw more labor at the problem as opposed to stepping back and really analyzing the problem. So just like in food costs, we really should have a true labor cost based on sales per hour or based on what our true cost of labor is based on our production. So where the big cost of labor is in the back of the house. Many states have tip credit. Okay, so they're paying servers maybe under $3 an hour because they're making tips. California just rolled out, I think in January, the ability where you can do shared tips. So if you're in the West Coast, that's a big, big idea because now you're paying somebody $15 an hour. They could be getting as much as $4 or $5 an hour in tip share. So now you're $20 an hour. That makes a huge difference. It makes your model pretty interesting. So if you are on the West Coast and you can do that, you should definitely be thinking about. All of our clients have moved to sharing tips with the back of the house because the dishwasher is just as important as anybody else.
There's been a huge indifference there. Sorry, I cut you short. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's just the reality is that when the dishwasher walks off because he's working too hard, he's only one person. There should be two. Who's going to wash those dishes? Mm-hmm. So if you can share tips with the dishwasher, show them a little love, a little respect. They're working just as hard as everybody else in a different way.
Yeah.
So labor is one of those things that operators really need to get their arms around. So what we teach is that if you're paying a cook, let's say $15 an hour, with benefits, let's say $3, 23%, it's roughly $18 an hour. Well, that's 30 cents a minute. And that's how you have to look at it. Mm-hmm. It's 30 cents a minute. Whether they're scratching their head, they're checking their iPhone, they're going to the bathroom, they're shooting the breeze, 30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents. So that becomes a big number. So what we help operators to see is ways to shave pockets of minutes of times by creating greater efficiencies. So if I can eliminate 240 minutes, of labor in your restaurant, which I do all the time. So 240 minutes, is 4 hours of labor. Well, you take 4 hours of labor, times 365.
So it'd be 60 times 4 times 30 cents.
It adds up to over $26,000 a year just in 4 hours of labor. That goes boom right to the bottom line.
Yeah.
So the operator really needs to take a look and really watch what's going on. And there's some real low-hanging fruit. There's things like close to open. So when the restaurant closes at night, and then when the cooks, everything goes back to the station, so the station's ready to open in the morning. So when the cooks come in the morning, it's not like the hunt for Red October. I got to go look for everything. They waste a half an hour right out of the chute just fetching.
Yeah. So just fetching. And I say this all the time. We always look out. But I think the trick is to look into what we're doing every day that we can do better, and that's where the secret is. How can we do every little thing better to be more efficient? What are your thoughts on that? I see you making.
There are so many tools out there, whether they're labor savings tools. We're a big fan of things like Hot Schedules, which is a great tool for managing labor.
I'm so happy you're getting into this. Yeah.
But there are also simple tools, for dicing and slicing onions and tomatoes, which in certain restaurants, if they do a high volume of it's very labor intensive. Remember, 30 cents a minute. When you're in the kitchen, your listeners, when they're in the kitchen looking at what's going on, just look around and you start thinking to yourself, 30 cents a minute, 30 cents a minute. That is the reality. And if you can shave 240 minutes, that's basically 120 minutes maybe in the morning shift and 120 minutes in the evening shift. You can consolidate, do a little compression, do a little creative scheduling. Boom. That's $26,000 a year.
Bottom line, time is money, right? Time is money. And I think a lot of people, I always try to encourage people to look to technology to adopt in their business, to plug into, why create a system when you can plug a system in that was built by experts to do one thing really well? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't justify spending the money on that thing, well, that's going to be an extra $30 a month. But how many hours are you going to save a month by having this efficient, streamlined process? And that's the way you got to think about it.
You have to have a big picture ideas. Oftentimes, many operators are in the weeds. They're struggling to survive. So spending any money at all is without seeing like a 10x return.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to justify it. But if you don't get these best practices in place and start using tools, it's going to make it more and more challenging and difficult to run the restaurants because automation and technology and data is critical to being able to make good business decisions.
Yes, we still got 2 more to get through. We're doing good. Number 7, food cost. Talk to me.
So food cost is one of those things that it always surprises me. Whenever we go into restaurants, I'm always amazed that most people do not really know what their true food cost is. They basically take their cost of their purchases and they divide that by their sales, but they don't really know how to value their inventory. And the problem with that is that you're not getting a true food cost, okay? You could have $10,000 or let's say $5,000 in inventory that's not really properly costed out. So the problem is that most restaurants do not have accurate recipes with yields, because if you don't know what the yield is on the recipe, then how do you cost it out?
Exactly.
To cost per ounce, cost per pound, whatever the case may be. So they're flying blindly, and that's a problem. Now for us, the way we like to look at things is we look at it the gap. The gap, it's not a clothing store. The gap is the variance between your theoretical and your actual, okay? And we manage the gap. I don't really care if it's 26 or 27 or 28. What I want to know is what should it be? What's my theoretical? If I have accurate food costing and I do a menu mix based on the things that I sold, then my theoretical should be 28%, okay? But if I'm running 31%, okay, there's a 3-point gap, okay? That's a problem. Now, most restaurants, even if the best run restaurants, be about a 0.5 point gap. The average is about 3/4 of a point. But if you're a 1.5 point or north of that, you've got serious problems. You have to really dig in and start doing food costs or doing inventory more frequently. Who knows whether it's over portioning? Okay, a lot of times restaurants don't have portion control tools. Yep. They don't weigh things. A lot of times they have these old broken down scales versus digital scales. And when you're paying $1.50 an ounce for, let's say, filet mignon, and you are off an ounce and a half, $1.50, I should say, on the plate or in cost of goods, translates to almost $4 on the menu.
Yeah.
So not having scales, not having portion control tools, not doing inventory,
honest employees,
keeping the back door locked, having a meat cage if you're in a steakhouse concept, because it's unfortunate, but we have.
Sometimes meat has legs. It walks away. It's weird.
And shrimp. I've never seen shrimp with legs, but they do. Exactly. I think what you have to do is you have to eliminate temptation. So you have to do, I call this being brilliant with the basics. If you can't manage to keep the back door locked, to keep the meat cooler locked or meat cage, and do inventory properly, I think you have problems, and they won't resolve themselves.
I think another one that I see or I think might be, and feel free to correct me because you're the expert. A lot of people don't really offer a great meal plan to like their employees. Like you get like a 50% or whatever. When you don't offer your employees something to eat, and they're hungry, they're gonna eat it. You know what I mean? They're gonna pull from the line or whatever, go to the walk-in and eat something. So I think, being able to, like, if you offer something and having a system for that, at least then you can track it, you can expense it. You know what I'm saying? Exactly where your money is going. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that's a great idea if you can pull it off and execute it. Like, there are brands that have that culture, like Fleming's, for example. They always have a pre-shift meal.
Yeah.
Okay. It is what it is. It's salad. It might be some type of a stew type dish, maybe some type of rice, but it allows people to eat together as a family, and that's the way it used to be back 30, 40, even 50 years ago. The restaurant would close for lunch, and all the employees would have lunch together, or before dinner they would all get together. They would break bread. We'd have a good meal, and it was a way of bringing the team together. Well, we've sort of moved away from that. We don't do that very often, but I think being able to offer it at certain times of the day, is a way to help really build that company culture, build that team, and show your employees, your internal customers, that you really care about them.